On Monday, something happened for the first time in history. Oil prices entered negative territory. So what?
36 million and counting have filed for unemployment, and Fed Chair Powell said he could see unemployment reach 25% or higher, which are Great Depression numbers.
And your people are projecting what, 20%? 25%?
There are a range of perspectives, but those numbers are sound about right for what the peak may be.
25% is the estimated height of unemployment during the Great Depression.
Just think not too far back when the market was tanking and how fast all that happened. If you think we are out of the woods, you are not listening. I continuously will harp on this because this is the event that will bring the most change. Don't ever forget about the economic collapse. Now you should also expect a civil war. People are starting to riot right now. There are reports that the federal government are buying riot gear right now. They've increased security funding, all because of this coronavirus pandemic. The purchase orders include requests for disposable cuffs, gas masks, ballistic helmets, and riot gloves, along with law enforcement protective equipment. People are upset. In Michigan, they are storming the state capitol armed.
Hundreds of protesters, some armed with guns, entered Michigan's state capitol in Lansing on Thursday, objecting to Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer's request to extend emergency powers to combat COVID-19.
And there is always the brewing of social unrest because they are killing unarmed black men. Organizations like the Black Panthers are arming up. It's an obvious provocation. They used us to build the country, and they're going to use us to tear it down. You should expect a problem like this. Also, include in your understanding that Trump has said that he will mobilize the military to distribute the vaccine whenever it is ready. How do you think that will be received? He wants to mobilize the military to give a vaccine? What do you really think is happening? Be ready for confrontation between China and the United States. The rhetoric is heating up on both sides. China has been growing in influence for many years. This is an inevitable conflict that needs to occur in order for the new world to be built. And the propaganda on both sides is heating up at alarming levels.
Tensions are rising between the world's two largest economies. Washington and Beijing are sparring over the origin of the coronavirus outbreak and how it was handled. And President Trump has threatened tariffs, and there's been renewed back and forth over the South China Sea.
If you're not paying attention to this, you really should. China has been telling their people to prepare for war. And Trump has been doubling down, calling it the Chinese virus, the Wuhan virus, and blaming China on the world stage. This cannot continue for long without some kind of conflict. If you're not being mindful of this, you are not paying attention. Then we have Jordan's King Abdullah promising a massive conflict between Jordan and Israel if Israel annexes the West Bank in July, which they still have been planning. There is also the threat of natural disasters. I mean, it was snowing this year in the month of May. We are being warned, but I don't think everyone is paying attention. Earthquakes are becoming more frequent and getting stronger. Don't forget the wildfires that we have just about every year in the West. And we are approaching a hurricane season in which the hurricane activity is being predicted to be about 140% of a regular season. People that are out of work and are already struggling will not fare well with a bad natural disaster. And one thing we are not thinking about is that we are in an election year. This is the first election season I have ever been in where the election is not being drilled into us consistently. Both campaigns aren't really doing much, and most coverage is negative. Obama has surfaced on the scene and has been speaking very critically of Trump, creating more sparks for a civil war. Eventually, the campaign rhetoric will start coming back into play. Think about what could happen when the second wave occurs and Trump cancels the elections. What do you think that will look like? I'm sure I'm leaving other threats out, but these are just the ones on the top of my mind. I'm not trying to scare you, and I'm not just being pessimistic, but the media is not mentally preparing us, and it's really crazy to me to see so many people ignoring all these real risks and trying to move on with their lives and put this whole world shutdown behind them. An event that we have never seen in the history of this world, a coordinated shutdown of the world, and people are trying to move on from it like it didn't even happen and just deal with the new normal that they are implementing. Now, do not mistake me, because I'm not telling you to walk in fear. I do not fear this virus, and I do not fear all these potential disruptive events either. Being aware and prepared is much different than being scared and fearful. Fear will come from the people that are downplaying all of this and forcing themselves to see what they want to see and not what's really in front of them. When the events happen, they will become fearful and they will run to the wolves for protection. So what am I conveying in this video then? Be prepared. Be prepared. Again, be prepared. I want to keep repeating that over and over until everyone understands. Do not go back into society with the mindset that things are on the path of getting back to normal. Do not have an expectation that things are getting better. I know you have been trained to only think positive and ignore the negatives. But with all the real things that I've mentioned, it's not thinking negatively, it's thinking realistically. Take the time to see your family and friends before the summer ends. It honestly may be the last time that you're able to see them before the second wave hits. Don't worry about shopping and living like you used to, especially if you're not prepared for problems. You have been given time to prepare for more prolonged isolation, and if you choose to play around with this time, it will prove to be a foolish decision. It's always a better feeling to be prepared for problems, even if the problem doesn't occur, rather than not be prepared and it does occur. If that wasn't true, there would never be an insurance industry. Do not go back into society without understanding what they are doing with contact tracing and what that can mean for you in places that you decide to visit. After we were all just in a worldwide shutdown, it should not be hard to get people to understand that they need to be prepared for the unexpected. But unfortunately, it still is. People want to ignore all of this and just be sheeple. I made this video because I wanted to make sure that there was some sound guidance given as they lift restrictions and temporarily reopen the economies around the world, because things are so deceptive today. We are so programmed by the media that we allow them to tell us what to pay attention to and what not to, when we should worry and when we should not, when we should prepare and when we should not. I want to make sure that a sound perspective and presentation of the risk have been presented to whoever our Father sees fit, so that you can move with a sound, sober mind, not drunk from the intoxication of this world. I have made a video about preparing for this world collapse, and all of that information still stands. If you have not seen it, please watch it. It's a little harder to apply today versus if you started earlier, but you still can do it, and you should. Let me make sure it's understood that I am not telling you to stay inside and hide. I don't like being quarantined as much as the next person. All I am telling you is to be smart about what you do and how you do it. Don't ever forget that they are introducing us to their new world order in phases, and we are just coming out of phase 1. And by far, undoubtedly, we will step into phase 2. I do not want you to be scared or to walk in fear, but to walk in preparation and a sound mind. In the end, being prepared and awake to all this will not matter if you have not gotten on the right team and have not concretely chosen whose side you are on. It's very irritating to me to see people that are awake to all that is going on in this world, but still have chosen to reject our Savior. Because in the end, He is all that matters. This is all about Him. There is no answer without Him. So if you feel overwhelmed, please give it all to Him. At times I do feel overwhelmed by all this evil, and I have to just bring it to Him and ask Him for His peace, because it is really a lot dealing with all this and seeing all that is happening while also being around so many sheeple that are asleep, or those that say they see these things but drag their feet with making important decisions. It gets to me, and I have to pray often just for peace in dealing with it. So I understand what you may be going through, but in the end, you must give it all to Him. He really is the only answer, and I promise you, He can and will get you through it if you depend on Him. Humble yourselves, then under the mighty hand of Elohim, so that He exalts you in due time, casting all your worry upon Him, for He is concerned about you. 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 6 and 7.